Internet friends. So I recently added this search page to Impulse Buy, and I wanted to walk through how I added Supabase filters to my FlutterFlow API call because I couldn't really find a lot of information about it and had to figure it out myself. As a quick demo of what I'm talking about, we have this search page and we have some choice chips that act as filters down here. So if we click bought it and got it for free, and then hit search after I clear my network tab there, when I click search, you'll see that it does a new API call to get the results of that filter. And you can see here the request URL that it's pinging. And you can see at the very end there's this param called status title equals, and then there's this value of in dot and a bunch of text. This is the filter. And the biggest question that I had when I was trying to figure this out was, what are the options that I can use here as filters? And the answer to that is found in Supabase's generated docs. So if we go to our Supabase and go down to API docs, it generates this documentation for like all of your tables. And if we go to the table, this is the table that I'm making an API call to in the app right now. And if we scroll all the way to the bottom, there's this filtering example. You'll notice that this is JavaScript, which we're not using, right? But if you switch over to Bash, you'll get this example of what the API URL should look like when you're filtering. It does only give this one tiny example, though, of filtering on an ID with the equals filter. And I hate to admit it, but it took me a while to realize, oh, I could probably just use these JavaScript method names in that same dot notation as a string in the URL parameter. So that's what I tried out and what we're going to walk through right now. Okay, so when we go to FlutterFlow and we're in our API calls section, under call definition, we've got our query parameters and our variables. So our query parameters are what we see in that URL here, offset, limit, order, etc. And the variables are how we set the value of those query parameters. The name of our query parameter is going to be the title of the column that we're filtering by. So if I go back to my Supabase table, just so you have a little bit of context of what we're filtering on, this is the table. It has item title, date, cost, status title, want level, title, and a few other things. So again, this is the column title. And then in the variables, these are what we set on the actual app page when we're making these API calls. And their value is going to be in that syntax of filter dot value, pretty much. Okay, so let's just walk through them in our response and test area. Most of these are pretty straightforward, but I'm a person who really learns by examples, so I wanted to share some examples. Let's start with equal. In a status title, we can say equal dot value, and let's say want it. And so you'll see over here in the API URL what that looks like. And if we test our API call, we should get back items with the status title want it. Yeah, sweet. We can also do the opposite of that, which is not equal, and that'll get us items that don't have that status title. We've got bought it, got it for free, and another bought it. Sweet. Next is less than. So less than, greater than equal to, and less than and equal to. They all work for integers as well as dates. So if we want to do, let's change this back to equal because there's more of them. And we want to do items that cost more than $20. I'm just going to move this guy over here. we've got 100, 77, 100, and we can do greater than and equal to, right? And that'll include 20. We can change that to like 100. So now we see 100, 100, 1,000. And then of course we can change it back to, or we can change it to the opposite of less than or equal to, and now we'll see 8, 100, 77, 100. Cool. And like I said, we can also use this for dates. So let's get rid of this filter and then add for the date. Let's do something like greater than, and then the syntax for this is year, month, and then a date separated by dashes. So this says everything after July 31st of this year. And we've got this August 5th, and we can change this to everything before that. And we've got July 17 and July 9th. So that's filtering by date with less than, greater than, etc. And then next we have like and ilike, and those are string matching or pattern matching filters. So if we get rid of that date filter and let's work on the title, we can do like dot, and then the format here is that you use percentage signs around the string that you want to match. So if we do cake and test that, we get ice cream cake, crab cakes, cheesecake. And the difference between ilike and like is that like is case sensitive. So if I change like with a capital C and test that, it will return nothing because there's nothing with a title with a capital C. But then if we change this to ilike, we will get those same cake items back because now it's case insensitive. Next, there's is. And I can't actually test this one because it is testing for null. I guess we can show what it looks like when it returns nothing because there are no titles that are null. But you can also use it to test Boolean values. So if a column is true or false, again, this won't work because the title column is text and not a Boolean. But you can use that here. You can do is true or is false. And then finally, there's in, and you got a preview of this at the beginning of the video where I showed you the demo. And what in does is that it allows you to filter against an array of values. So if I want to see all the items that have the want it or the bought it statuses, I use in dot. And then the syntax here is that I put the list in parentheses. So there's an open paren, first value, comma, and important thing is that there's no space here. And then the second value, and then end parentheses. Because if you put a space here, it includes that as the value that it's looking for, so it won't match. And then if we test our API call, you'll see we have a wanted, oh, there's going to be a lot of wanted. Oh, there's a bought it. But yeah, that's how you use in, and I'm pretty sure you can pass in as many values as you'd like here, and so on. So those were the filters that I tested and got to work for the most part. I still have questions, like if we go back to our API docs and that filtering example, you'll see that we went through all of these filter methods, but I tried the arrays method as well also, but those didn't work. And then also if you go to learn more, it takes you to the JavaScript documentation, and there's even more filter methods, things like dealing with date ranges or more text search things. And I tried those as well, and they did not work. So as of right now, I think we have these filter options to work with. And yeah, I think my two biggest remaining questions are, how do we filter on a column that has an array in its value instead of a single value? And then my other question is, how do we do a date range? Because we can do the less than and greater than, but how do we get a range? Oh, and then the one other thing I wanted to touch on was dealing with empty parameters. So you may have noticed in our demo, I kept this status title variable checked the whole time because I'm pretty sure it's a bug right now where you'll see that these other parameters, when I've unchecked them to not include them, they're removed from our API URL. But when I uncheck status title, it still includes it. And then if I test it, it fails. And in the app, when we make an API call, it tries to include all of the parameters, even if we don't set the variables. So to handle that, in a call definition, I added an API interceptor. And what that looks like is this. And it's basically just checking if those parameters are empty. And if they are, remove them from the parameters list and don't add them to the API URL. And that's all I have for this video. I hope it was helpful and that you have fun with your newfound filtering powers. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.